Hello and welcome to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. My name is Dave Aarons and I'm the founder and CEO of Unbundled Attorney. In this podcast, we interview our unbundled attorneys, as well as the leading experts in the industry, to identify the best practices for converting leads into paying clients and how to ethically and profitably deliver unbundled legal services and other affordable options in your practice. To learn more about how our exclusive unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com.
All right, welcome everyone to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. I am pleased to be joined here today by Mr. Robert Wegeman, who has had quite a starting journey here with Unbundled Attorney and quite a good deal of success as well. So, Rob, I really appreciate you taking the time to share some tidbits from the saga and talk a little bit about what your experience has been like over these past few months we've been working together.
Yeah, my pleasure, Dave. My pleasure. It's been a ride. Good ride.
Yes, sir. Sometimes it feels something a little bit more like a rocket ship than we had planned. And that's a good thing rather than a kind of a steady roll. But that is its own unique challenge, which is keeping up with the increases as they come. And so maybe, Rob, we could start out, just maybe share a little bit about your background, the practice of law, how you got started, and the focus of your practice at this time.
Sure. So I started out I guess once I went to the Coast Guard, I dealt with a lot of regulatory stuff, environmental, things like that. That kind of piqued my interest a little bit into the law side. So obviously we had to dig deeply into not only the statutes, but regulations and stuff like that. So that naturally led my interest or directed my interest into law. And then I applied through the Coast Guard legal funded program and got accepted through their program. So it was actually greatest deal going because I got paid then I was a lieutenant in 2003. I got paid as a lieutenant to go to law school. So the only thing I had to do then was come back and give them 4 years, which I was going to do anyway. Only now, instead of being a line officer, I was more of what they call in the Coast Guard a law specialist, but it's most people know it as a JAG officer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I worked with the Navy, so I did hundreds of courts martial, administrative separation boards, things like that. So that's really where I got my criminal background, my litigation background. I left there and resigned my commission, took a position in Manhattan, at top tier firm there, and then decided that after 9/11, I said, I got to get out of here. It's not that I was scared. It was just commute got to be horrific. You know, any suspicious anything, they were stopping traffic for everything. So it was just the point that I just needed to come back down here where I was. And I decided, 20 years ago to just go out on my own. I felt like I had the experience that I needed, and I wasn't a great businessman, but I knew I was a pretty decent lawyer, and I tried to figure out the rest. So that's where I've been ever since. I've been just doing this. As I've gone, I've sort of scaled back from trying to handle everything that comes in, trying to solve everybody's problem, to just really focusing on my core areas, which is at this moment is more of around the criminal traffic obviously being reckless driving, DUI, that type of stuff. But a lot of stuff I just turned down, like all the family law stuff I used to do. I don't do it anymore. And now with all the leads coming in, and especially with the criminal stuff coming my way and traffic, I don't need to spread myself any more thin than I am.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, I think that's kind of a natural evolution for a lot of firms, is if they start to kind of niche into what they enjoy, they do the most, what they feel like they're best at, where their strong suits are. And when we start to get the luxury of being able to be selective about the types of practice areas, that's good. I mean, I think when most people, hang their thing, they're like, yeah, general practitioner, whatever comes in the door, someone passed away, you need a will, you got a criminal charge. Oh, you got trying to get custody of your son. Oh, you get an immigration case. Yeah, I think I could probably help with that.
Yeah. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's just forms, right? I can figure this thing. and then gradually kind of niche in. So, and then I think there's a level that I like to ask about your background with Coast Guard and working as a JAG lawyer and how that informs the way you practice now, whether you have, standard operating procedures and some of the things that, would probably be influenced by your time in the military or with a kind of military rank and file type of outfit, right? But maybe before we do that, we could just talk about, so you launched your practice about 20 years ago. And then it's been a kind of gradual build up and then niching into a specific area. I think the last, since we got started working together, it's been, quite a rocket ship, maybe in all the best ways that a rocket ship can be. But maybe you could just bring us through what these last, few months or so that we've been working together have looked like. And then we can start talking about, some of the good challenges that's brought forth and how we've been able to rectify.
Sure. Well, it's really been it's really been tremendous. I went from at one point thinking that my practice was dried up. I mean, because a lot of my stuff is word of mouth. At this point, you've been doing it long enough, you start to get those referrals coming in. But people would say to me, "Well, how's in the era of COVID and post-COVID, how are things going in the criminal law areas, or has crime gone down because people aren't getting out?" I said, "I don't really think crime has gone down. I think the ability to pay has gone down." Mm-hmm. So what we saw at the public defender system in this area, and that took a lot of business away from private attorneys who were really at that point, or prior to the start of the public defender's office, we were called upon to handle pretty much any case in which was an indigent defendant, and even now if there's a conflict or something like that, we'll step in and do those. But that was the closest thing we had to a what you might call a paycheck, because we didn't have to worry. That was a steady source of income, and the state would pay you. But then when the public defender's office came in and we were left kind of flailing, I guess, figuring it out, I mean, that took a lot of money out of our pockets initially, but then things kind of dried up for a while there. And I was not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous. The phone wasn't ringing. Mm-hmm. But since I've been with Unbundled and things have gotten going a little bit, I've tried to do some things in terms of placement of my website and a lot of SEO type stuff. But really, I would say Unbundled has been the biggest change for me, because now I'm getting these calls and they're coming in and they're good leads. It's not just somebody's just saying, well, let me just click on this and see what it's all about. I think the thing that excites most people is when I start talking about what I can do for them, and then all of a sudden I break out you only need to put 20% down. Mm-hmm. You can hear the excitement in their voice. Honestly, you really can. And because they're worried, they're a little bit stressed out about whatever's happening to them. And then I say, look, and my approach to that, by the way, is maybe a little bit different. And I don't know if this is recommended or not, but what I essentially tell people is, look, you should be glad that you reached me through Unbundled, because if you just reached me straight away through my normal website or whatever, I said, I would have probably asked you for 50% down. In many cases, lawyers were asked for 100%. That's just how it works. And then most of them will agree with me. But when I say, but because you reached me through Unbundled, I have committed myself. I have agreed to take no more than 20% down. You can pay more, but I have committed to myself to taking 20% down. And as soon as I say that, it's like bingo, it's done. Now I don't know if that's truly accurate, but I guess I could ask for more than that, but that's the sort of the premise that I think that you guys operate under. And when I mention that and they say, oh, this guy's going to do it for 20% down, it's in. I've hooked them in, and that's it. So that's been my approach. That's the line I use, or some words to that effect. And it's really worked well for me.
And was that a shift for you when you started working with Unbundled Attorney and kind of learned a little bit more about how that functions and the business model with the 25% or whatever it might be down, and then the recurring billing payments from there? Was that a shift away? Were you traditionally doing the 50% and then the full amount, and then you were like, okay, well, let's test this thing out and see how that functions?
Yes, for the most part. I mean, if it was a big enough fee, sometimes I would take. I don't think I've ever taken as little as 20% down. I will say that, but there were times when I would do maybe a third down, depending on the size of the fee. But generally speaking, yes, 50% down. I don't think if it's a small enough fee, I'll often say, look, it's a relatively small fee. We would ask you to put the whole thing down. But even with unbundled, if it's a small fee, for example, it could be a speeding ticket, a reckless driving where I'm not charging an exorbitant fee, I'll still ask for the 20% down. So yeah, it's been a departure from what I used to do.
And do you remember when you were maybe having your initial conversations with your support lawyer, Mr. Dolance, and we were kind of breaking down the model, what some of your concerns might have been at that point? I would say that because I think there's some understandable concerns for criminal lawyers, especially given the fact that usually when you're making an appearance in a criminal case, you're in on it. We've heard kind of mixed things depending on the jurisdiction about whether there is opportunities to pull out if there's financial constraints. But in general, you kind of have to assume that you're on for the ride, so to speak. And so, do you remember kind of when we first kind of laid that out, what your initial concerns were, what your hesitations were, given that, you were kind of working the kind of more, I would say probably the most common model for criminal representation that's been taught for decades, which is the full amount up front or get half down. Cause if that's all you get, then you got to be happy with that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's my concerns were really twofold. First, I was worried that by asking for only 20% down, I was going to somehow just have to give up the 80% that I didn't get. That hasn't been the case. That hasn't really panned out. I can talk about that a little bit and how that, I think working with Unbundled and then in conjunction with, I use my case, but LawPay has been a tremendous asset because people can go on day or night, weekends. And I think that's really helpful because when they get $150 or something like that, I'll see it might be a Saturday and it'll pop up on my phone. Oh, so-and-so just went on and paid, it could be 150, but point is they're paying it off. I haven't run into a situation where just because I asked for 20% down, they're saying, okay, that's great. Now I get a free ride. I get to coast for the extra 80. I haven't seen that, but that was one of my big concerns. And then the second concern was that I guess I was under the impression that somehow I had to lower my fees and ask for less overall. I don't mean like ask for less as in down payment. I mean just overall.
Right.
And once I spoke to Mr. Dolans and there was another attorney that I spoke with, because at first I had some trepidation about it. But then I said, well, all right, you've got the 20 lead, I guess, guarantee. Yeah. And I said, all right, well, there's nothing to lose. I'll give it a shot. And within the first 5 or 6 leads I got all of them right there. I already knew
almost every one of them.
Well, yeah, there goes my guarantee. It's shot, but I didn't care because I made 10 times what I would have gotten from the guarantee. So I was hooked at that point. But that was another one of my big concerns, just making, I felt like I was of the impression that the business model expected that we were expected to charge less, but I was told, no, you charge what you charge. It's just, you want to get them in there, make it more affordable for them. And I think once I understood that concept, everything else just took off. So, I have no concerns at this point, none whatsoever. The only concern I have now is can I handle the volume of business and should I bring in somebody else? And that's a real situation where it's not a concern, but it's I've got a pretty good work ethic, and I think it ties it back into my military experience. You just can't be a slacker and do what I did. So finding somebody like me who doesn't mind staying until 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night to get the work done, that's actually kind of hard to find. So right now I'm just doing it all on my own, but it's Unbundled has definitely, if I could just show you what was on my desk right now, and you'd see there are probably 7 cases that I'm expecting to come through for me with pretty high dollar amounts in the next week. So it's been tremendous.
Yeah. And I think that's probably going to be the next chapter is, well, how do we engineer this command center to start to get the appropriate resources on deck to be able to help you with whatever it is you are seeking to accomplish with your firm. And so that might be maybe a round 2 we can do at some point was, how are we able to resource accordingly to get the right people in place, the right systems in place, be able to help you increase your capacity to serve the right amount of people and the right team in place to be able to serve the increased volume, which is its own journey. I mean, that's kind of business building, right? And developing the right systems in place to do so. So let's talk a little bit about the concerns that you had and kind of how that's played out to some degree, because these are kind of the misconceptions and honest concerns for any criminal lawyer, I think, that's exploring this. This is a model that any criminal lawyer can do, but there's just the usual trepidations that they're going to have about doing something that's kind of a diversion from what's always been done, kind of the traditional approach to the practice. And so maybe you can just talk about how the capacity to have automated recurring billing payments, the payment processor, and being able to have people do weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. This was something that we didn't have 10 plus years ago. It just didn't exist. We didn't have the ability to, get an authorization from a client and then automatically bill, on a weekly basis where we don't necessarily have to have them pay, or they can go online and just make a payment whenever they want. And, you didn't have this kind of ease of transaction, whether we're, physically in person or not. So maybe you can just talk through how that has unfolded for you, because, you did those first deposits and you're like, all right, well, 20% down, like, am I going to get to 80%? And then how has the ability to have these additional billing options helped with that second 3/4 or second 4/5?
Right. No, it's been, I think that this business model, along with LawPay, the two seem to be very compatible, because you're asking for 20% down. You're trying to, and what I generally try to do is put them on what they call, and maybe this is a common term, I just wasn't familiar with it, but they call it subscription billing, where I can set it up where another way of looking at it is they give me a credit card or a check. They can even pay by e-check, but it would set up. So for example, if it's bi-weekly, I set it up so that they know that on every, let's say Friday, every other Friday, it automatically comes out. And then I get noticed, they get notified that it's come out. And so, that if that stops, I think I get a notice that or I can check it. I don't know if it's automatic notice or not, but I know I can see if that automatic payment has come out. And the first time it doesn't, that gives me the opportunity to reach out to them and say, hey, what's going on? But again, with the subscription billing, it's automated. It's something they don't have to think about. I don't have to think about. It's just, I get prompted that there's been a payment that's been made. So there's no question, there's no doubt that it's made for this business model work even better, because one, my secretary doesn't have to reach out to people. I don't have to say, hey, call these 10 people and see if you can get some more money out of them. No, it's all automated. They can go onto the portal. They can see balances. I see what their balance is. I mean, it's right there. And it's like it's an automated reminder. So you might even say that your payment is due 1 day from today. It's like, it's like anything. If we go to a doctor, generally will use some sort of portal type system, and you pay your bill right there using your phone. And people, let's face it, this is something we use every day. So for them to be able to go in and get a prompt that, oh yeah, you got to pay their bill, they're more likely to just hit, if it's a subscription billing, then they don't have to even do that. But if it's otherwise, they can just go on under their phone and pay, and it's easy. I think the easier you make it for people to pay, the more likely they'll pay. And that means even if they have $50 in their bank account and they want to, you know what, I'll put the $50 down instead of going out for dinner tonight, they'll do it because they want good representation. Right? Right, exactly. You're not giving them that opportunity to kind of go out and just squander it. They know that it's right in their face. Oh, you got to pay this. And it's not me. It's not me yelling at them or telling them, threatening them or anything. It's just a computer. It's all automated. So it's really been, I think if for this business model particularly, I think they really, and this is something Mr. Dolans and I talked about a lot, but, and he agrees with me that the law pay has been a tremendous asset to lawyers, and as well as, and particularly as used with this business model, because people worry about the 20%. Well, I think with the law pay, it alleviates a lot of that concern, because it's worked out really well for me. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe because
I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, the genuine concern would be like, oh, we don't have the collections, but obviously that's the glue that makes the whole model function. It's because of the ease at which folks can pay, the automated nature. I think it's also that you're typically structuring the payment plans so that the payments are coming out on a frequency that is according to how they get paid. Right? It's kind of like you're taking a client-centered approach to billing. Right? It's like, look, how often do you get paid? When do you have the money? Oh, okay, well then we'll process it then. What's realistic for you? Okay, we'll then pay that. Right? It's just like, we'll, and then we have the system and the user interface that can then enable us to fulfill on that, even with small amounts that are happening on a weekly basis. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how I could, like, you really couldn't administratively have deployed on this model 10 years ago, because there wouldn't have been a way, it wouldn't have made sense to be processing $100 payments or $150 payments on a weekly basis. You wouldn't be processing them. You'd be calling them, and then they bringing you $150 in cash, or you'd be, having to mail a check every week. Like, you couldn't do, payments according to when they get paid, because it's administratively be too much. You'd have stacks of checks and so forth. So it made sense that you would do monthly payments back then, right? Because it was a manual process, right? And no one wanted to do something manually that involved writing a check and bringing it to you physically, right? I had to come by the office to drop it off, come by the office, drop it off. No one wanted to do that every week, right? So like the model, the previous current traditional model makes sense given the constraints of what was available at the time and has been, right? It's just a matter of, well, now that's not necessarily the case. We now have these tools available. And so then are we going to adapt the way we've always done? Are we going to regenerate, have a new way of thinking about how we're approaching the practice of law and how we're approaching the way we work with clients on a financial basis, now that we have these tools at our fingertips, and kind of re-question and think about, well, what if we did do it this way? Now we have these tools available to us, what would happen? And so I think what the biggest piece of this is that probably all attorneys, if they knew that they could, collect on that 80%, would leave with the 20% down, because that would help them differentiate and enroll a lot more clients. Maybe you can give, do you have any sense for how much more how many more clients have been enrolling for your services, knowing that they only need to put $600 down on a 3K case or $1,000 down on a 5,000 or whatever it is? How much that's affected your ability to, convert a lead into a paying client, because you have the ability to lead with that as the initial starting number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have any exact figures on how that's the correlation there, or the transition rate from lead to client based on that model. But I can only say that that given the amount of money that I've charged for certain things, if I had to ask for 50% or even 40% down, I'm certain I would not have gotten the case. If I'd asked for 100% down, I absolutely wouldn't have gotten the case. So the 20% down has been a game changer. So I can't give you exact numbers, but I can only tell you that I have probably, I would say I'm about a 75% conversion rate just by asking for 20% down. I mean, some people just call and they have a lawyer and maybe I don't know why they call, but there's always that percentage that calls and they're happy with the lawyer they have, or maybe an uncle who's calling for the nephew who's locked up and that type of stuff. So it's not ever really going to go anywhere. But the people who are serious about trying to get a lawyer, and when you tell them the 20% down, it's and you give them the fee, and then you tell them, look, because of Unbundled, I'm obligated to take no more than 20% down. Again, I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but it works for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're not obligated, but in the sense that, because I work with Unbundled Attorney, and this is the commitment that we have, is making legal services more affordable. When people really hear that you have an interest and desire in making things affordable for them, and that you understand that, hey, man, it's not easy to, you didn't expect yourself to get this criminal charge. Nobody does, right? And then you go out and you start talking to these lawyers and they're asking for $10,000, $15,000. And, that's not easy. People don't necessarily have that, right? And so, this is why we do what we do, is we're here to, provide you an affordable way to get the representation you need to get this situation behind you and taken care of, but not in a way that's going to break the bank, or not in a way that's going to be unfeasible to overcome.
I think one of the reasons I say it the way I say it is because once I let them know that, and again, it's a little bit of a stretch, and I recognize that. But when I say, look, I've committed to taking no more than 20% down. You can pay all you want, but I've committed myself to take it. Once I say that, and then most people know that lawyers are going to ask for 50% down, and in some cases 100. But once I say that, they don't need to go back out on a search engine and try to find another site or another lawyer. They know already, because some of them have been through the systems, or know somebody who has. They know they're never going to get a better deal than that. They know it. So at that point, it's boom. I mean, you've got your big bass and you're just reeling it in. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's done. I mean, it just works.
You hooked them, and then you just get them on the ship and then take them where they need to go.
That's it.
Right. And I think it was Aaron Harshman who said, when it comes to criminal representation, you can either be more affordable or you can be cheaper. And he'd rather be more affordable in the sense that keeping the same price. I mean, I think you mentioned that earlier, where it's we're not differentiating on the total cost, right? We're differentiating on, how affordable and accessible is it for the person to be able to pay the typical cost that they would otherwise be, that you would be charging, right? Because that's really the barrier to entry. It always has been. It's the same is true with family law. Same is true with any of the practice areas where a client needs to pay a retainer fee. How much is the retainer fee going to be, right? And then that's going to be a pretty major factor in their capability or lack thereof of being able to retain and hire an attorney for their case, right? And so, to the degree that we can lower the barrier to entry while still having good systems in place now to be able to have that full amount still paid out, but just maybe over a little bit of time, the degree that we can lower that barrier to entry is the degree to which more and more folks are going to be able to step through that door.
Absolutely. I should just add one other thing. I've talked about law pay and how that I think works really well with this system. But the other thing that's really, I would say if there's a third thing that I would recommend to any attorney, is a good case management system. Now, I happen to use my case. I know there are people who use Clio. But the point is that even though they're coming in at 20%, and and they say, okay, well, maybe because I only paid him 20%, he's not going to put forth the full amount of effort. He's going to give me 20% worth of his effort, or whatever. I think there's a little thought that, I've heard people say to me over the years, hey, if I paid you a few $1,000s more, could you get me a better deal? Or would you work a little harder for me and things like that? And I said, look, I'm obligated to work hard for you, whether this is the fee that I've given you. And if I wanted more, I would have asked for more. But the point is that with the case management system that we have in place now, every little thing that we do, they can communicate with us through the system. Everything that we do, from motion for discovery, for example, we upload to the system. Now they get to see, oh, this guy's actually doing something. So they don't have to call and say, hey, I'm just wondering what's going on with my case. Let's cut down the volume of calls that we get for people going, hey, I just wanted to see if you can give me an update. My secretary just says, have you checked your portal? And then they check the portal, and they can see now there are 10 documents in the portal. There's a welcome letter that we do. There's a representation letter. There's a fee agreement. There's a motion in order for discovery. There's a letter to the Commonwealth. There could be a dozen things in there, but now they're realizing, wow, I only paid 20%. I've gotten all of this. And so it to me, it encourages them to pay more, not to pay more, but to continue paying. Let's put it that way. They paid the 20%, but to continue paying, because they say, wow, maybe they were a little leery at first. Oh, this guy's only asking for 20% down. How
just
good
get some
can
cheap
he really
lawyer,
be?
Or some chase, right, ambulance chaser,
That takes all of that whole, whatever thought they may have about that, that's completely removed now, because they're just like, wow, now I'm seeing exactly what this guy's doing. Like, he's making good on everything that he's got to do. So that to me has been another big contributing factor to why I think people have continued to pay. And I'm not at all worried about the 20%, because they see that even if I just stop doing what I'm doing, they've gotten their 20% worth. But I continue to work, and they see it. So anyway, that's
I would agree with you, Rob. I think that's a big component. The visibility that you're giving your clients, for them to be able to see what it is you're doing for them for the money, right? It's at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, I'll make this initial deposit. It's a good faith deposit. And then, I'll make the commitment to the payment plan. But then they're kind of looking to see, well, are you going to do your side of the deal, right? And you're kind of like at the early stage of the 80%. And so, to the degree that you can create that visibility and say, yeah, man, I'm doing my side of the deal too. I filed this. This is what's going on. And I would imagine that's kind of that's a very common concern or complaint, or just kind of like something that has been a common challenge in the client experience, is lack of visibility or understanding with what's happening in their case. What is my lawyer doing? And then if they don't have the visibility and they don't have the communication per se, because you can't just, outbound call everyone every time you do something, the thoughts creep in the back of their mind. Well, is he doing anything? Like, you hear this kind of story, like, oh, I hired this lawyer, he didn't do anything for me. Right. And that's probably not true. It's probably almost never true that like a lawyer did nothing, but the client doesn't know what you did. So then at a certain point, yes, you did it, and you can defend yourself from a potential complaint, but are your clients knowing what it is you're doing for them, right? And how it is you can bridge that gap, because that's going to, I would imagine, that instills a lot of confidence for them to have that visibility in what it is you're doing for them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, they might view the 20% as, oh, I'm getting the bargain basement attorney who's going to give me 20% of his effort. And again, it's once they start seeing that, they realize, wow, this guy's only charging me 20% up front, but he's going to give me 100%. And I can see it. There's actually a way to verify what he's doing. So it's not only, and I think it has contributed to their paying more. They see more documents uploaded. They see more emails and copies of correspondence going out. Then it says, oh, well, maybe I should pay this guy a little bit more. Gosh, he's done a lot already. And so I don't worry about them going, and now they're up to 25 or up to 30 or 40%. because they see that the work is being done. So it's not only contributed to bringing the money in, but it's also cut back significantly on the amount of calls that we get, because I can go into the case management system and go to recent activity and see exactly who's checked the portal at any given time. And so if we upload a document, I can go back there and look and say, I upload it, and 1 minute later, the person's checking it already because he gets prompted. So I think that's been another thing that I've found has been tremendous, is to allay any concerns that they may have by, if for example, the guy has a DUI. And he goes to the lawyer, and the lawyer says, "Hey, I'll handle your I'll handle your DUI for $500." And so he calls 3 other lawyers, and the lawyer says, "All right, I'll do it for $2,500. One guy says, "I'll do it for $5,000. He's getting prices all over the place. The question is, if he goes with the guy who's doing it for $500, he has this perception that you don't have that much confidence in yourself, because you're only doing charge at $500, or your business is slow, or there's something that's not right. It's like anything. We feel like the more we pay, the more valuable it is. That's why people maybe buy a Mercedes over a Hyundai or whatever. I don't know. But the point is that once they see that the 20% is just the entry point, you're going to get 100%. I'm giving you 100% of me myself. They have no hesitation to pay. And I don't know if that's kind of another way of restating what I already said, but I think that's really the important takeaway here.
Yeah, you have to curb the concern, like these systems are curbing the concern that, why is this guy taking such a lower amount down? And I think part of you explain that in your presentation or your consultation. So it gives them some context about, why is it you're doing this? And also you're still giving your flat fee quote, still $5,000, like they're clear on what the total cost is still going to be. But, I'm committed here to making things more affordable for folks. So I don't take more than 20% down so we can get this rolling without it breaking the bank for you and your family, right? That's a different story. So it gives them some context on the front end, but there still might be the seed of like, does he do that because he kind of has to? Like, who, is he going to do the work and so forth? And so it's like immediately invalidating that concern, and rather reinforcing the fact that you're going to be providing the quality representation you would expect from anybody, if not perhaps even more so, because of the fact that you have these systems in place that gives them that additional layer of visibility. Could you? I think Clio has a similar portal, but maybe could you just describe for lawyers that don't have this kind of system in place, how that operates on your side of the firm in terms of like your general process and what you do, and then how that is showcased to the clients to the degree that you have an understanding of it.
Okay. Yeah. So this is how I got started in this whole case management thing. I was using another system that I won't name, but it was more of a billing program. Let's put it that way. And then I started thinking to myself, and this happened one day when I actually went to the doctor, and there was a little like an iPad type thing that they gave to me, and I filled out all my information on that, and basically all that information got mapped over ostensibly to the computer. So the data entry piece went away for the secretary or whoever was handling that. And I started thinking,
it was like uploaded to the patient, right? Basically.
Exactly.
Or, in some ways, right?
That's right. And so I started thinking, and I started looking at a way. Actually, I reached out to the company that I was using at the time, and I said, "Have you ever thought about trying to do something where I could hand like an iPad, for example, or some sort of tablet, and have them do the same type of thing?" And they said, "Oh, that's a great idea. We'll talk to our engineers about it." And then I started looking around, and I found, wow, this already exists. And so what we do now is I'm actually able to go in there based on information that I know is going to be helpful. I created an intake form and various intake forms. So if it's a criminal law case, it's a criminal law intake form. If it's a DUI, it's a DUI intake form. If it's an estate planning, it's that type. So, but anyway, I can go in and create the intake. And whereas before they would come in the office and we'd hand them a clipboard with a piece of paper and a pen, and they'd fill all their information out. And then the secretary had the tedious job of entering all that data. No longer is that the case. We start from the very beginning. I'm sending them an intake form. I'm saying, look, you're going to get an intake form. It's going to be super easy. A lot of it are like fields that you just press. And I've designed it to be, to not be a tedious process. But that intake form, they hit submit, it comes right back to me. I know already just by the fact that they've returned their intake form, they're interested. So that tells me not only do I have their information, but I also know a little bit about them. And in the intake form, I include things like, what are you looking for in an attorney? I mean, there's a whole host of questions that deal with what is the most important thing for you in your selection of attorneys? And they have little form fields that they can pick out. So I'm sort of like trying to pick their brain in a sense and understand. And then it also say, have you discussed this case with any other attorney? And if so, who? I might think, well, why are you asking me that? Because that's information that's useful to me. I want to know, are they talking to, again, I call them the bargain basement guys, or are they talking to the guys that are charging 3 times what I charge? If it's the guys that are charging 3 times what I charge, then I know I've got a little bit of flexibility in there in terms of fees. And those are the kind of guys, those are the caliber of attorneys they're looking for. And I've been doing this long enough. I don't want to give myself away. So anyway, what they're seeing from the very beginning is, hey, you're going to get an intake form, send it back to me. Everything that they get goes electronic. They never really have to come into the office except to discuss their case. Everything is handled through the case management system, and including the payment, the fee agreement. It's like a DocuSign type of thing, where we type it up, we put it in the system. All they got to do is click and hit submit. It comes back to us. And I know they have to be thinking, wow, this is so much better than having to drive over to this guy's office, sign the form, or stick it in the mailbox, or scan it and email it, or whatever they do. So all of these things, I think when they see, like, there's a level of professionalism with the case management system. There's a level of professionalism that's inherent in the I want to say, in my case, it's built the
intake interface.
Law pay.
Sure.
The intake interface, and then just my overall presentation, confidence, whatever, all that plays a role. And when they add it all up, they go, wow, again, go back to, yeah, he's only charging 20% because he reached me through Unbundled, but he's giving me 100%. And I haven't even begun to pay. I haven't paid anything beyond the 20% at this moment, but he's already been bombarded with few things that he's happy about. He's not like I'm like overloading the guy. He's just like, wow, this guy's really on top of his game. So, and if they see that you're on top of your game, they're going, look, I need this guy in my corner. He's on top of his game. He's giving me a great price to get started. Why would I do anything else? Why would I go anywhere else? So I think there's that trifecta, or I don't know this word, but that those 3 things sort of merge together: the law pay, the good case management system, and this business model really all work in conjunction with one another.
Yeah. And just a quick clarifying question on that intake process. Do you send the intake? Do you have them complete the intake form before you do the consultation? You're saying, so like when you do get to the consultation, you kind of have a sense for what they're doing, and if so, what kind of lead, when the lead comes in, does your secretary talk to them real quick, have them complete that intake form, and then schedule you in type of deal, or do you talk to them? Okay, great, I'm going to send you an intake form. Get that back to me. Let's talk later. Like, how do you? Because that's a unique step in the sense that we're having them fill out that form. I don't know if you do it every time or not, but having them fill out a form, at some point in that early process. How have you engineered that so far?
So it kind of varies depending a lot on just logistics. I mean, sometimes I'm in court, so I'm not available. So what she'll do is she'll open up and she'll type in the lead information, basic lead information. We won't ask, how did you hear about us, and all those other kind of questions and stuff like that, because we already know if it's coming in from Unbundled. For example, I'll put that in there later on. So I don't ask them for information they've already given. I try to make it real simple. And in fact, email, I don't ask them for that because that's information that you guys are providing already. So we try to avoid some of the redundancy and just use the forms that you guys do. And then what we do is she'll tell them, look, we're going to go ahead and send you an intake form if you could get that back to us. And usually while they're on the phone, she's already sent the intake form, said, can you check your phone or your computer and make sure you got it? And they'll, oh yeah, I got it. I see it right now. And I say, well, if you just take about 5 minutes to get that back to us. What the beauty of that is, it's not only giving me useful information, but it's saving them time. It's saving me time, because when they walk in the door to actually meet with me, I don't need to, here's a clipboard and here's a piece of paper. It's immediately, I already have their intake form. Like, for example, this is, I'll hide this part, but this is one of the intake forms. I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's several pages, and I can add whatever fields I want. But then when they come in, I already have this in front of me, and I've gone through it before they walk in the door. I know how many charges they have, basically everything I want to know about them.
Well, what would you say are the top 3 or 4 questions that you kind of like, if you, let's say they're at the door, they're coming in, you're like, okay, what are the 4 questions I want to hit real quick?
Well, I mean, practically speaking, I just want to know when their next court date is and if they already have an attorney. So I need to know, like, how quickly do I have to jump on this? If they have an arraignment coming up, so those kinds of things are very important to me. I want to know what they've been charged with, because I don't know how to set my fee unless I know that. So those would be like the practical kind
case
of
factors, but then also on your intake form, because you've got custom questions in there, like what are your kind of go-tos? You always look at these 3 or 4 questions, right? You got the case factors, what's the court date and so forth. So there's the case factors, which obviously you have to know. And then like, what are maybe like 2 or 3 other questions that you just kind of go, all right, I need to know, this is helpful. This is really helpful for me.
And by the way, this form evolves. I mean, depending on like, as things pop up, I can say, oh, you know what? I need to add that question. I didn't think about that at the time, but now I see this is something I need to add. So for example, one of the topic headings says financial responsibility and contact. And it'll say, like, are you the person who will be financially responsible for paying attorney's fees and costs? It's a yes or no. They click yes or no. It's very simple for them. If the answer is no above, please provide the name and number of the person who will be financially responsible. This is the next question, because I mean, it's kind of funny, but I deal with people who, they got their, baby mama over here, and they got their girlfriend over here, and they got their wife over here, and some of these guys stay pretty busy. And so it's confusing for us. We don't know who to discuss the case, and we don't want to get the guy in trouble, right? So I actually thought about this. I said, let's put a question. I said, is there anyone, for example, ex-spouse, significant other, friend, you would like us not to speak to under any circumstance, even to confirm you have a case with us? And sometimes you get a list of names under there. It's like, okay, this person, let's say Jenny Smith calls up. I'm like, is she on my list? Oh, no, I don't know
what you're talking about. Yeah. No, I have no, I'm not at liberty to disclose, sir, ma'am.
Exactly. I can neither confirm nor deny.
His whereabouts.
Those are the types
officer.
But those are the types of things that, didn't start out in my intake form, but later, as I've gotten into it, we're like, that needs to be in there, because man, it's confusing.
Yeah, gotta keep track of this stuff.
Yeah, but there, there's a whole series of questions. Not a lot, because I don't want them to spend 10 minutes even doing this intake. I want it to be a 5-minute
right?
process.
Like, sweet spot in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's also any action that you can get a client to take, whether it be send me a copy of this, or email me that, or fill out this intake form, especially. It creates momentum in the direction of, okay, well, now I've done this work to like send all this information to this lawyer, and I filled this intake form, and I got this call, and now I'm meeting with him and so forth. Like, there's a lot of momentum in that direction, right? As opposed to like, I pick up the phone, I talk to the lawyer, and he just like throws me a quote, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll think about it, bye, right? Not a lot invested, right?
That's a great point.
It's like small steps, not difficult, but maybe like just a couple things they need to do, not paying a consult fee or like anything that's like financial server, but like just a little bit of information they need to provide. You make it extremely seamless. It's right on their phone. They can fill it out in a few minutes, but like it's investing them. They're investing into the relationship, right? And to the degree that they're investing in the relationship will certainly have an affect on the amount of folks that are going to decide to move forward, because they don't want to have to do that process again with 2, 3, 4 lawyers, right? So if you can kind of meet their needs financially with a compelling offer, and also, you have, there's also a system in place, so it makes it tangible for them. That like, wow, this guy's got a system, and there's a fancy iPod. I would imagine when you're in the patient's room for when you're at that doctor, you're like, this is pretty cool. I got an iPad. This is fancy, right? He's got a form. He's got to fill me that thing. I'm on my phone. I'm doing this thing, right? Like there's like an infrastructure here. There's a system. There's a process. There's something tangible in my hands, right? Or tangible that I can see, and not just a voice, right? Because especially when people are coming off the internet and they were just matched with you, or even coming through your own form. Voice builds some relationship for sure, but anything also, these physical, tangible capacities are only going to bolster confidence in the relationship.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think that it's not only given me useful information. In fact, the fact that they've completed the form, it tells me that they're interested. It's like a little nibble, if nothing else. But I think the point you made is even bigger, which is that now they have truly taken the step. If they weren't interested, they thought the offer was too high, or whatever reason they had some doubt about me, they're not going to go to the trouble to fill out this form. Mm-hmm. So when I see that the form has been completed and submitted back to me, you're
probably like right. 90% done deal there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, they have, they now have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm. That's right. They've invested, a little bit of their time and energy in that, even in a micro fashion like that can go a long way. It's a silly example, but no, that's more like obligado, but just like it's like micro enrollments. Anytime someone's going to sell anything online, like you start by adding give me your email address. And then I'm going to send you an email. And then I might start you with like some sort of small little offer for $97, something like that, and buy this course. And then once you get to the course, then you go to the next layer, right? It's just these are micro commitments, right? And so in this case, we're just like, hey, fill out this form and get this information so we can better assist you with your case, take these steps, right? And those micro commitments are, lead to the macro commitments that we're getting towards. In terms of the intake form, So the intake form comes in, secretary, or you will kind of send that to them. And then are you booking them for in-office appointments? Do you typically enroll folks in person, or do you do it over the phone? Do you kind of do a combination? How have you experimented with that so far?
I'd say it really depends on the type of case. If it's a traffic case, more than likely I can just do it over the phone. Mm-hmm. But of course, a lot of times I won't even schedule them for a visit right away until I get back the discovery information. So they're seeing in the portal, oh, this guy just filed a motion and he's produced an order for discovery. Now we're just sitting back and waiting. And along the way, we're updating the case stages. So now we're past the arraignment. We're at the discovery stage. The next stage might be to review discovery. So they're getting updated on what we're doing, in a sense, real time. But if it's for example, if it's a reckless driving case, mm-hmm. If they want to come into the office, I never discourage them from coming into the office. They can, but it's not the kind of thing where they need to come in and I need to spend an hour talking to them about why they were doing 99 and a 60 or something like that. Mm-hmm. I can just talk to them on the phone. But if it's a more serious case that's going to require witnesses and maybe some I need to understand the facts a little bit more. Yeah. And I definitely want them to come in. It's kind of weird because I used to say that if I could get them in the office and they could meet with me and talk to me and understand the level of experience that I have, it was a done deal. But mm-hmm. now I guess given that we're doing things differently, I have very few people actually say to me from the beginning, before I make my decision, I want to meet you personally. Mm-hmm. They'll just go ahead and commit. And then later on, and I say, well, I mean, we do need to get together, but why don't it makes more sense to get together after I've gotten what the Commonwealth's attorney has in the way of discovery, so we can review all that and we can figure out whether we have any defenses and whether any of it's true or false and that type of thing. So a lot of times they're willing to hold off on that initial meeting and just wait until I get more information, because I've given them my as much as I can give them over the phone, and now it's only a question of, because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I did great on the field sobriety test. I aced it." In other words, they did the walk and turn, the one leg stand, all these things that the police officer. Even the police officer told me I did great, and I'm thinking to myself, well, man, that's why he charged you with a DUI. So I mean, it doesn't really matter to me what they say, how well they did. I need to see the body worn camera footage. I need to see the police reports. I need to see all of that, and it would be at that stage that I would typically bring them in. If there's if they're on the fence about whether they want to hire me and would rather meet me face to face, of course, we'll handle all that. That's no problem. But I'm finding out that because we're doing so much electronically that it's cut back. It is cut back significantly on the number of appointments. I don't spend my whole day in there in the conference room, just one behind the other, just dealing with clients. I'll deal with them when the time is right.
Yeah.
But as far as reeling them in, that's already done.
Yeah. It's also an interesting observation, I think, in general, that like by having an online, mobile ready interface to complete intake and having them do that step, and then having like kind of a physical, it's not physical, but it's digital. It's a digital engagement, but that's physical in the sense that it's in their hands and they're seeing the screen, they're going through a process. Like they can kind of see that that's going to be the way it's going to function going forward. And so I would imagine that might even be influencing why the need to meet with you is also moving downstream in the process, right? Where like, it's no longer required, making there's no doubt, like if someone comes in the office, there's a confidence, there's like okay, man, like how are we gonna handle this thing? Like this is what really happened. Blah, blah. There's a feeling there that people are going to have and that they'll retain. And I think that's true no matter what, but is that necessary for them to make the commitment and the investment? And by having an interface and a way to see, like, I don't think we can underestimate that. I don't think we can undervalue, so to speak, having that kind of interface and then having the experience of this being like, there's a digital thing we can do here too. That's going to kind of be in alignment with the Amazon era, so to speak, or the COVID era, or the whatever is the kind of principal influencer of this shift in the way that we transact in this world, that kind of like signals them. They're like, this is kind of like the online stuff that I do. So I just talk to him, I do the online, and then he gives me an intake form and we just move like this. Oh, I don't need to meet with you. It's just like something else I've seen on the internet that I've done before. Right.
Exactly. I think it's it's kind of like if you went into anybody else's office that is a professional and they're using antiquated equipment, and so you're wondering, the dentist or whatever, you have your doubts about whether they have the latest and greatest equipment. So are you really getting the best assessment of your dental needs or your health or whatever? Like, you go into place and they say, we don't really have an MRI, but we can do such and such. And I don't even know what that would be, but you understand the point. Like they're looking at that and saying, okay, this guy's a little too old school, or this practice is a little too old school. When they start to see these kinds of things come in, I think it's, especially for the people that are younger, I think this is what they're used to. So I'm not giving them anything that they're not. I mean, that's kind of almost what they expect.
Yeah.
And so to do anything less than that,
they're like, is this guy a dinosaur? Is he like not? I mean, how's the way he represents me? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I was trying to say, and you said it a lot better. But yeah, is he a dinosaur or is he like up with the times? But it's true. It's really true. There's a perception. Everything goes back to perception. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then I wanted to circle back on something we talked about earlier, which is standard operating procedure. I would imagine, not to harp too much on the case management aspect, but we talked about it being a trifecta, and I totally agree with you in that sense that like that is a major contributing factor, right? To have that interface and also to cut down the client communications. Plus, you got the automated recurring billing. They're transacting through the internet. It's like we're just creating a seamless digital experience in terms of the way I pay and the way I get notified and updated about what's happening with my case, right? That's kind of the experience, and therefore that enables the over the phone enrollment, that enables the intake form, that enables the automated recurring billing payments, that enables them to feel confident with the 20%, right, down, and then making those payments over time. We've got the automated subscription billing, right? All these things work in tangent. So I do see I agree that 100% that all these things are in alignment. And then I would also imagine, and maybe you can share from a standard procedure standpoint, having the case management software and then kind of like the stages as you described it. I would imagine that has perhaps streamlined would be a word, but maybe like kind of made your practice more process and kind of stage driven in a way, right? Like, okay, we're at this stage of the process. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do this. And then when you start to look at, well, do I get other people to help me with this thing? And you've got all the stages kind of lined out. It sets things up to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit more clear in terms of what needs to happen and when and in what order and so forth to make this a little bit more of a standard operating procedure, right?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when they start to see things like, let's say I get my response to discovery back, and we're at that stage now where I've filed my motion, I filed my order, or I've done a subpoena ducis tecum where I'm asking Verizon, let's say, to turn over records or something. And then so we upload that. So they say, oh, wow, this guy, he didn't just talk about it, he did it.
Well, that's the client side, but I'm talking about for your side, right? Like having this process in place for you. Like, do you remember when it was like when you made the transition from kind of like whatever, there's maybe kind of a pen and paper, we go further back, but then there was kind of like the billings platform, and then you kind of went to a MyCase, and how that has changed internally the way you run your practice and the way you interface with the way your process. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the attorney side.
So what's cool about this system that I'm using now is it allows you to design based on your own needs, what's called a workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what you're talking about is like, there's certain things that you do every time in every case. For example, somebody comes in there, he hires you, and you need to do a letter of rep that says, or sign an order or something like enter an order with the court that says you're now on the case. Mm-hmm. So that's like step one. Step two would be, let's now that somebody's been assigned to the case, we need to determine who's been assigned to the case. So that's really step two. Step three is we need to now generate a motion in order for discovery with a cover letter that gets shotgunned out to everybody. Again, but instead of me sitting at my desk wondering, I wonder if the secretary's has she done all these things now, or where are we on this, or where are we on that? From my screen, I have created, or I can see, because I've created a workflow, which basically says when I get a case in, these things that we always do, I just attach that workflow, and now it gives deadlines. There are taskers that get put on there, and every time something gets done, you just click it. So again, from my standpoint, I can go on there at any point in time and see, even if I don't have the file in front of me, I can see exactly what's been done, because not only am I seeing it being uploaded, but I'm also seeing that task has been completed. Right. So it no longer do I have to think, did something slip through the crack? That's the important thing. Mm-hmm. Did something slip through the crack? Did we meant to subpoena some witnesses and we forgot 1 week before trial and we're never going to get the subpoena. Now I've got to ask for a motion for continuance. No, because weeks before that, or maybe even months before that, we already have a workflow item in there to subpoena witnesses. And as long as it doesn't get completed, it keeps popping up on my screen and just annoying me until I say, okay, finally, I got to get to this. So that has been a tremendous change too. Mm-hmm. having those little, not only reminders, but for my secretary who's relatively new, and I brought her in because I thought her personality was great. I figured I could teach her the law, but I can't teach her these other things. But she's terrific with the clients. So, but this workflow has helped her because I don't have to.
Yeah, she got to sit down and knows exactly what she needs to move forward on each project. Okay, exactly. This one's at this one. This one's here. This one's here. And she just has her workflows and her, work set forth before her. Right.
Exactly.
The system and the process you've developed, in previous cases, and just thought through all the different steps that would be needed and make sure they're all there. And then we're just kind of moving people through those steps. It's like, I think that another old term was lean manufacturing, so to speak. Right. Which is like, well, what's every single thing that needs to happen? Can it be automated? Can it be delegated? Okay. What's that process look like? And then let's have that translated into, a system process that everyone follows, relatively every period of time. You don't want to have that from a client communication standpoint, but anytime there's process involved, the way we can make this as clear about like, we do this, and we do this, and we do that, it's going to enable the firm just to run a lot more efficiently. And like you said, not have to worry about, whether something gotten forgotten or did this get done or not. Right. You have the visibility, right? You have the visibility, not only for what you're doing, but for anyone else's. I would imagine, Rob, that, as you've been kind of looking at, well, hey, what's this next stage of the practice look like? And you start onboarding attorneys to work alongside you as associates or contractors or wherever you structure that relationship. And then you start assigning cases to them through the system. And then you're kind of like, well, is this lawyer doing the work? Is this lawyer doing the process? Well, let me go take a look at the online thing. And like, well, did he do the work? Did he file this? Did he do that? Right? Like, you're going to have that visibility, and they're also going to have the process set forth to them in a simple way in terms of what it is they need to do. It's just, it's more of a kind of plug and play, and you can, better manage the team that way. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's another great point, because you bring in especially a younger attorney who maybe doesn't know, not really sure what to do, but doesn't want to come ask you each and every time, like, I did this, what should I do next? This answers those questions right there in the workflow. Now, my door is always open, but I'm just saying, for somebody who's new to practice, new to law, for example, there's no way that he might come and say, well, this is one of my tasks that I have to do. I'm not quite sure what I need to do, but he knows what the task is. So yeah, it's the automation. I'm almost 62. So I grew up without computers. So for me to go from where I was to where I am now,
if Rob can do it,
exactly. If Rob can do it, trust me, because I resisted a lot of stuff for a long time, but now I'm like, God, how did I ever get by without this type of thing?
So I don't ever keep track of this shit. I mean, it probably would have just got worse.
I know.
Lord knows. But, well, hey, Rob, this has been so fun, man, and really to really hone in on how these three systems are really working in concert has been very clarifying for me as well. Just to understand like how they all support each other, right? To have not only the 20% down, but then also have the digital interface to handle payments, plus also the client portal to give the client the visibility for you to have the back end, management and workflows. It really becomes it really is a business model, right? Like. From not only what we're starting with and how we're differentiating on the starting fee, not differentiating on price, and how that impacts the enrollments. And I would say probably, from our numbers, it's like at least a double 2x in conversion from a 20% versus 50%, probably higher than that, but at least doubles the conversion rate for most of our lawyers that have can try both ways. Some attorneys come on board and they start taking leads from us, and they still do the 50% to full the full amount down. You wouldn't be surprised. Even after they've done the activation presentation, they've worked with their support lawyer, they still do the model and they get some decent results because the leads are really good, but don't necessarily get the 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2 conversion rate. Right. And so, then, we kind of work with them and go, hey man, why don't we give this a fair shake and see what happens? And usually, sure enough, that's when they start to really see their conversion take off too. But then these systems that you put into place and how they're working together, it's just really exciting to see, how it all plays together and how easy it is for the client to get access, how it kind of alleviates their concerns. I would imagine that, they'd be feeling really comfortable and stoked about their experience working with you as well.
Yeah, no, it's been a great thing. And I will say that Unbundled has sort of got me thinking about how to bring in people by asking for less money up front. I've even adapted that to my overall practice. So obviously when the leads come in from Unbundled, I handle them that way. But even the calls that come in normally or the referrals that come in,
I'm committed to taking 20% down.
Right. No, I've sort of taken the Unbundled model and applied it to my overall practice, and it's been successful there too. So it really, I think it just goes to show you that people want good representation, but that they don't walk around just like I don't. Somebody asked me for $5,000 right up front. I mean, I might have to go finagle something, but I'll come up with the money. Maybe we're a little bit different, but there are a lot of people who don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, no doubt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think this business model really, really works well for most working folks. And again, with the other systems in place, you kind of like, it's the backstop to make sure that you're getting the additional money in a timely way and not having to make a bunch of phone calls. So I'm just happy I made the decision to go with you guys. As I started out by telling you, I had some hesitation in the beginning. I was like, yeah, it sounds good. But the more I thought about it, I guess I didn't understand it completely. And once I was made to understand it, and then I saw how things were changing for me, I'm all in, so I appreciate it. I appreciate what you've created here. And I think I told Mr. Dolans, I said, man, I think we've created a monster. But a monster in a good way, a friendly monster.
Yes.
So I appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate your openness to, I think in general, you're like, hey, man, there's a better way to do this when you were in that patient's room of your doctor. And you said, how can I do this in my practice area, in my law practice? Hey, maybe there's, I heard about this 20%, and some people are like, it might just kind of toss that aside, but you were open and willing to giving it a fair shake and see how it functioned. So like, I think your entrepreneurial spirit of being willing and open to try new things and test it out and see what we end up with. It's just always a pleasure to work with an attorney like yourself that's, being on the cutting edge to the degree you can and evolving as times evolve. And I'm very excited and pleased to see that it's paying dividends in the way that it has, and certainly very excited for the future and of this model and what it brings forth for both the clients and attorneys like yourself.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And again, just thanks for having me on. I hope something I've said will help. Maybe some other people do things a little bit differently, but whatever I'm doing, it's been a departure from what I had been doing in the past, and it seems to be working. So I'm excited about what the future holds for me.
Next chapters, Rob. Here we go. This rocket ship, it's just taking off. It's just starting to leave, starting to depart. Here we go.
There you go.
Thanks again, Rob, and to everyone else who's listening and participating in the podcast, thanks for taking good notes and learning and being willing to apply new ideas into your law practice. Times are a-changing. We got document automation, we got AI, we got online systems, we got the internet, we got all these things that are happening, and you got to be taking advantage of it to grow your practice. It's probably one of the most exciting times to be in the practice of law. A lot of things that were the drudgery of law aren't as necessary now. A lot of things, the ways in which you kind of had to do the data entry or the paper and all that kind of stuff. It's just become a lot more efficient, which enables you to work with clients on a more affordable basis, help people get access to the justice system that deserve it and need it. And so thank you for taking the time to learn and sharpen that axe and not be a dinosaur.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Dave. Hope we'll talk again soon.
And we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.
For more information about how our exclusive Unbundled Leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com. You can watch each new episode of the podcast on the Unbundled Attorney YouTube channel, or if you prefer to listen, you can find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. And be sure to subscribe so you get each new episode as soon as it's available. And remember to leave us your review on iTunes. We read each and every one of them and really appreciate your support of the show. Once again, thanks for listening.